I think sometimes we get super emotional about money. Like money is not the goal and it's not the enemy. It's just the tool we have to use to get the goals we want. Welcome. I am Camilla Jeffs, a 20-year student of money. I'm an introvert who started out broke and full of fear. Fast forward to today, where I've conquered the secrets of getting my financial house in order, become a professional investor, and built a business that supports my family. And I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. We're going to talk about getting in the game as a real investor, building a business to support you, and passing on wealth strategies to the next generation. Think of this as your one-stop shop for all things money. This is the Quiet Wealth Podcast. Hello and welcome back to Quiet Wealth. I am super excited to have an amazing guest today. But first, if you are new here, welcome. We're so glad that you've joined us at Quiet Wealth, where we talk about three things. We talk about investing, we talk about how to grow a business and play the tax game, and we talk about generational wealth. So this is all things money podcast, especially for you, my introverted friends who need to build wealth on your own in quiet. And so I'm super excited to welcome Dr. Darla Bishop. She is affectionately known as the Financis. I love this. She's the founder of Financis LLC, which is a boutique consulting firm based in Lansing, Michigan. And she is the author of How to Afford Everything. So I'm super excited to talk about her book because I just love the title, and we're going to get into the title of it and all the things in this book. But Darla, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I am been thrilled about this since we scheduled it, just listening to episodes and just so excited to talk with you and to be able to share some stuff with your listeners.
Yeah, I think Darla and I have big hearts for teaching people about money. And we're so excited to just dive into this episode and share with you some amazing things. So make sure you stick around to the end of the episode. We're going to tell you, Darla's going to tell you actually how you can get in touch with her if you want to work with her, because she has some pretty cool stuff that she can do to help you if you need some help with your finances. First, Darla, will you just kind of give us your journey? How did you become interested in helping other people with money and finances, and where did that all come from?
Yeah, so there have been so many moments in my life where, especially as I was coming of age as a teenager and young adult, where I felt like, man, if my family just had more money, had better relationship, better habits, better behaviors around money, some of the problems we had growing up would either have been so much easier to solve or would not have existed in the first place. And I had this amazing opportunity to go away to college as a scholarship student. And my drop-off experience was so different from that of my roommate, where we had to call around the family who had a car good enough to drive the 45 minutes to get me on campus. My one cousin who had a recently leased car said, okay, I can take you, but I can't miss work. So be on the corner with your stuff by this time. I'll take you so I can get back to work. So I was on the corner with my duffel bags and my tote and my little mini fridge that somebody gifted me at a graduation party. And my cousin so lovingly dropped me off and said, love you. You're going to do great. So proud of you. Bye. And kind of jetted off. And my roommate had just a completely different situation. Her parents, she was from out of state, so they flew in, all three of them. They rented a car. They stayed in a hotel for the week. They took us to dinner. They took us to the big box store that they didn't have in their state and were really excited about it. And the mom kind of pulled me aside and said, Darla, I noticed you didn't really bring much with you. And I kind of said, oh, it's fine. My family's not far, not wanting to let on just how poor we were. And the only reason I was there was because I was a smart kid who figured out a scholarship. And she said, no, sweetie, get whatever you need. And I was like, well, that's really nice. And I'm not going to say no to that box of Capri Sun juices because I love them.
Same,
right? And then when we got back, they said, oh, it's such a beautiful day. We're going to walk to the bookstore. I said, okay, I'll go with you. And they noticed I didn't buy any books. And they said, well, why didn't you buy your books? And I said, oh, I'm a scholarship student. I can't get them until Tuesday when classes start. And the mom was like, oh, sweetie, we can't leave here without you having your books. You're good for it. Just let us get the books. And I was like, absolutely not. I can't accept that. That's so generous. I promise it's fine. The older students at orientation told me it would be okay if I didn't have my books on the very first day. Like, I promise it's okay. In fact, I'll have my roommate call you to tell you when I buy the books. Please, I can't accept it. Thank you. And they kind of leave reluctantly. And okay, so when they finally leave after being with us all week, I said, well, what do your parents do? And these people had regular jobs. And I was like, okay, if I'm in this room with my background with this girl who has a completely different situation financially and her parents have regular jobs, I can figure it out. So I started reading financial literacy books. But I was so motivated to change my life. Like, there were really bad things happening in my family that I knew which would not be the case if we just had money.
Wow, that's so motivating. That's very inspirational and pretty crazy because so I'm a mama of some college kids and I flew with my kids to drop them off at college and make sure they were settled. It's a very different experience. And I love that you got motivated because of that experience, right? And because you saw that there was a different way to live your life and you decided, okay, I'm going to take it from here. So take it from there. So you started reading financial literacy books. And then what was your college major? Did you finish college? What happened after that?
I studied psychology and linguistics and Spanish because I loved languages and I loved understanding how the brain worked to process language. So that's how I ended up with all three because a lot of the classes kind of double and triple counted. So it's like I got 3 degrees for the price of 1. I've always liked a good deal.
Okay. 3 for 1. 3 for 1. There you go.
3 for 1. And then I continued and went on to graduate school and got a master's of public health because I thought I wanted to be a physician and realized that actually public health was where my skills and my passion to help communities and not just individuals and families would be fulfilled. And then many years later, went back and got a doctorate also in public health because I've been having so much fun in that part of my life.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So you're very well educated. You've got lots of education under your belt. I love it. So tell me about finances. How did finances come to be?
You've heard I do a lot of stuff, right? I've got a couple of jobs. I wrote a book. I have a couple of very small children, so maybe a little bit different from some of your listeners. I'm on the other end with a 3 and a 5-year-old. But one of the most important roles that I've ever had and cherish so much is that of sister. Usually big sis, even though it's not always an age thing, right? You can be somebody's big sis even if you're not older than them. And the reason I went with this as my moniker is because I love talking to people about money. And sometimes you listen to your sister better than you listen to your mom. So that felt like the right way in the right place to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So I'm the big sis in my family and I have a lot of my siblings come to me and ask for advice and we kind of lean on each other and sometimes I ask for advice from my little sister too. But yeah, you're right. Like your sisters are people you rely on and you trust all the time. Okay, so let's talk about this book. I'm so excited to get into the book, How to Afford Everything. And the reason I really latched onto this is because I love the title. Like I talk to people all the time and, when I'm doing financial education about changing your language to be able to change your mindset about money. Because a lot of us, whether that's through growing up years, whether that's through home experiences or maybe it's other types of experiences as we're growing up, we kind of enter our adult years with a not so healthy relationship with money. Sometimes we're bitter because we look at our bank account doesn't have very much money in it and we're like, we can't just buy it. We can't buy anything. I'm broke, right? I hear people talk all the time say, I'm broke. But I love to talk about let's change our mindset and let's change our language. And I had to consciously do this with my own children, even because you go to the store, right, with your kids and they're like, Mom, can I have this candy bar? Or can I have this big bike, right? Maybe they want a giant bike. You're like, baby, we can't afford that. No, we don't have enough money for that. Well, is that a true statement? Are you speaking truth at that moment, right? Maybe the bike costs $500. Do you literally not have $500 in your bank account? Chances are no, you actually absolutely do have $500 in your bank account. So are you speaking truth? The truth instead is we choose not to purchase that at this time because we have other goals and priorities and other things that we're earmarking our money for. And so changing your language and change, it changes your mindset and to help you to actually, you can afford anything you want. And so talk to me, how did the title of the book come about for you? Because I know I could go on and on about it.
It was exactly that. When I talk with people who say, you know, I heard you're pretty good with money, or I can tell you're good with money. Could I ask you a few questions? And that's what starts the conversation is I just feel like I can't afford anything. I can't afford everything that we need to, you know, but I think I'm doing the right things. So how can I get there? And so when I sat down and wrote the book, I said, what's the big promise I want to make? Because I'm going to make a big promise to the people who invest in this book, right? I was like, you know what? I'm going to teach people how to afford everything. And it's everything you need, everything you want, depending on where you are. Because for some people, it's just, I want to be able to pay the bills without worrying about it. It could be that simple. For some people, I want to be able to put my kids through college debt free while also teaching them some financial responsibility, but not leaving them with the big bill as they start their lives, right? And so wanting it to be open enough and hopeful, because also so many of the other books I've read, so I've read more than 118 financial literacy books now that I've recently counted, so that's where I'm at. And many of them kind of have this finger wagging tone. Like, well, the reason you're in the situation you are is because you've made bad choices. Or the reason you have this is because you're not thinking the right way about how to use money and debt and you don't make enough money. And for me, the way that I grew up, when I would read that in a book, I'd be like, oh, heck no. If you knew the choices I had available to me, I made the best possible choice of the menu of options, and I made that work really well for me. And so I wanted to speak in a voice that was encouraging and uplifting, because so many of the books I read missed that. And frankly, none of them honored my expertise as someone who had somehow lived and made it out of poverty, and honored that I actually had quite a few skills with money. I just had to use them differently so that I could learn how to live with money instead of what I had been doing before of living without it.
That's fascinating. And I love that you are coming at it from a different angle. I think most people already think that they're terrible with money. This is what I hear all the time. Like, oh, I'm just bad with money, or like, I just spend all my money, or I just hoard all my money. I can never buy anything. And people have really a negative view of themselves with money. And I think a lot of that comes from the things we read and hear and listen to. And so my message has always been, no way, you're great with money. You can do it. You can absolutely figure it out. It's totally figure outable. It doesn't have to be a mystery. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. And also, it's just a tool. I think sometimes we get super emotional about money. Like, money is not the goal and it's not the enemy. It's just the tool we have to use to get the goals we want, to achieve the goals that we want. And it's a tool that, frankly, you have to use every day. So you might as well have a good relationship with it, just like you need to have a good relationship with your health and exercise and, you know, all of these things you have to have a good relationship with. So talk to me about some of the strategies. What are the strategies that you have in your book for people for how to afford everything?
The first thing that we actually tackle is, what are those beliefs that are in your brain about money that might not even belong to you, that maybe your parents gave you, probably from a place of love, but every time you went to the store and they told you no, how did they tell you no? What messages did they give you about money? What things did you overhear from the adults in your life growing up? So almost going on a little time travel, like, that belief that's in my brain, is it mine or did someone give it to me? So that we can figure out where those beliefs come from, and if maybe we can say thank you and goodbye to any of them. The other piece that we work on, much like you, is one of the easiest ways to change the way that you think about something is to change the way that you talk about something, because your ears are the first to hear the words that come out of your mouth. And so if you've ever seen a star athlete, you might see them like a track runner, right? At the starting block, you might see them verbalize to themselves, run or sprint, because they know the power of their words hitting their ear. So the same thing can be true with your money. So instead of saying things like, I'm broke, that's actually a cuss word in my house. Or I'm bad with money. We don't say that here. We say things like, I'm getting better with money every day. Mm-hmm. I'm learning how to use it better. I don't have money for that right now. Or that is not in my plan. Because not only does that signal to the people around you that you're working towards something, it reinforces it for your brain that you're really doing it.
100% agree with you. And, and I even talk to my children about this, about simple things like their appearance. If you look at yourself in the mirror, or you look at yourself in a picture and you talk negatively about how you look in that picture, your ears hear that. It's just yourself being mean to yourself. Like, stop it. Just stop it. We don't do that. Let's be kind to ourselves. But I want to go back to something else you said, and you glossed over it, but I think it's a really important point, is that look back at your childhood, the way you were raised, all the money experiences that you've had. And if you have a whole bunch of negative money experiences, that's okay. I loved how you said you can say thank you and goodbye. I love this concept of thinking of it as this thought bubble, right? You've seen the cartoons, they have the thought bubble. The thought bubble is right here, right next to your brain. The thought pops up. Oh, my parents always said that money was bad and evil and I shouldn't want it. Okay, there's your thought bubble. Thanks for that thought. And then release it and just let it like, whoop, like rise up into the air and go away. It's not serving you. It's not helpful for you moving forward. And so identifying a lot of those negative thoughts, I think, can really help. Okay, so mindset stuff. All right, what is another strategy to be able to afford anything?
The other piece is we actually have to know where your money is and isn't going. So because money ain't just math, because actually money math is pretty simple, right? It's pluses and minuses, maybe some division, maybe some multiplication. We're not doing quadratic equations. We're not doing calculus, right?
Like we didn't need that.
We didn't need that. Like you can actually do money math with about third grade math, but it's because there are emotions and experiences that color that math. We have to figure that out. But what I mean by that is a lot of times when someone comes to me, they're like, I just feel like I'm broke all the time. And I say, okay, well, show me your spreadsheet or show me your bank account. And they're like, well, I haven't really looked because I just know it's bad. Like, okay, well, guess what we're going to do? The first thing we're going to do, we're going to figure out your magic number, because I want to know how much it costs you to live the life that you are hoping to live. And so what I mean is, how much would it cost you to pay all your bills on auto pay and not be worried about which day of the month it is? How much would it cost you to be able to send your kid to the daycare or the middle school or the college without it being a financial burden or disaster? How much does it cost you to go to the grocery store and get your favorite apple? Not the one that's on sale, not the one that the kids like, but your favorite apple, regardless of how much per pound it is. Okay, great. That's your magic number. So now we're going to look at your bank statements, your credit card statements for the last 90 days to see where all your money went. Did it go to the things that you listed to make up your magic number, or did it go other places? Because sometimes when we have money and it's going in and out of our accounts and in and out of our lives, we don't recognize that we're spending money on things that actually don't align with our priorities or values. And that's okay, because once we know how much money we need, where the money is or isn't going, it's really easy to fix it.
It's like just getting it out of your brain and onto a piece of paper, right? And suddenly you have clarity. And I've done this so many times throughout my life. Sometimes I'll have like panic moments about money where I'm like, oh my gosh, we don't have enough money. Like, I don't know what's happening. And then my brain just spins and spins and keeps me up at night and, all of this. But as soon as I sit down and I actually just throw the numbers out, look at the numbers and evaluate exactly where I am, suddenly my anxiety's gone. I don't have this anxious worry about money anymore that I had before. And it's kind of something that's happened to me a lot through my life. It's just this anxiety, panic about it, and then calm, right? To like, okay, look back at your past, look forward, and then look exactly what is your exact financial picture today. And then you can make some pretty clear decisions.
When I'm first working with someone, I almost 100% of the time make them do this on pen and paper. And it's one of the hardest things to get someone to do because there's so much fear and pent up anxiety and what if I mess it up? And I say, but I need you to do it. And I'll tell you why, because this is one of the hardest parts. Once we put it on paper, it removes that power and gives it back to you so that we can do what needs to be done to get you to where you said you want it to be.
Yeah, I love how you said power, because we can't let money control us. We've got to be the boss of the money. We've got to tell it where to go. Think of money as your own little soldiers. They're your own little army. You could send them out to do specific things for you, and then they bring back other stuff. And once you get clear on exactly where you want them to go and what you want them to do and what you don't want them to do as well, then that's where you could really afford anything, right? And work to that point and get to that point. So I want to pivot a little bit because you and I, we were chatting before, we were talking about who listens to this podcast. So typically it's women in their 40s and 50s, and a lot of them may be looking for a shift in their lives. And Darla was telling me that she has shifted a lot in her life. I mean, we've already heard that she's gotten multiple degrees. But Darla, I would love for you to talk more about all the different shifts you've made in your life and why you have made them.
Yes, for sure. So I'm a military spouse. So what that means is that the Army gives me this beautiful opportunity. You can probably hear I've had therapy about this, to change my life, especially when it comes to my work life, every 2.7 years, because it's time for us to move to a new market. I get to look for a new career and hopefully one that meets my magic number, because as someone who talks about the magic number, I know how much it costs me to live the life I like. The life where I'm able to pay the bills on automatic. We can go on a couple of vacations each year, that I can have an on-demand babysitter when I need a date night or 2 hours to stare at a wall because I'm still at that stage of parenting.
Yes.
Right?
I don't think that ever goes away, honestly.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Even when they're teenagers, you need some stare at the wall time.
I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me. Now I will prepare myself and my budget.
That's right.
I thought I was going to be able to take this off in a few years, but now I won't. And what I realized in changing jobs every 2.7 years, as I started to sit in interviews in these new markets, people would kind of look at my background and see it's a little bit all over the place. And I'd be like, so, Miss Bishop, Dr. Bishop, what exactly do you want to do? Right? Because we see you have experience working in politics. We see you've worked for health insurance and for universities and doing research and have been a doula. What's that all about? And they kind of are like really curious. Right? And what I figured out is there are a few things that matter to me when it comes to my work life. I care that I'm positively affecting the health of communities, but it doesn't matter how that looks, right? That I care that I work in an environment that has enough flexibility to deal with the fact that I'm a military spouse and have small kids, and that it pays me my price, because just because my zip code changed doesn't mean my magic number changed. Mm-hmm. And so that also allowed me a lot of freedom in terms of I didn't have to stick to a certain company. I didn't have to stick to a certain industry. I didn't have to stick to a certain job title. As long as I could find that those things were in the job, I could do it. And so that's why I've had so many interesting experiences. Because if you look a little bit closer, oh, right, you were helping moms get through healthy pregnancy, or you were helping people who have Medicaid as their health insurance be as healthy as possible, because that was what was most important to me at work. And so when I'm working with folks who are thinking about a career shift or change, whether it's because they're in college and they are just starting out and they're not sure if their major is what they want to do with the rest of their lives, or it's someone who's mid-career who is just like, you know what? This isn't what I want to do now. I actually have folks do a values exercise, because if we can figure out what your top 3 or 4 values are, then that will make it much easier to find work that aligns with that.
That's so powerful, because I think some of us get into this, our brains start spinning about what are we going to do. And, I know I'm dissatisfied with what I have been doing for 20 years, but there's still pieces of it that I really liked. What do I do now? What do I do now? And I think if you get really clear on your values, I love that. Like, what do you actually care about? And then align that with your magic number too, because it's not just about, you still want to bring in the income that you want to live on so you can afford what you want to afford, but those can align. I think sometimes people think they can't align, but they 100% can align. I'll give one quick example. It's called impact investing. If you want to invest in a different way than just the stock market, right? You can invest in companies who are creating impact, right? So maybe you care a lot about the environment. You can go and invest in energy companies who are creating better technology to save planet Earth. And not only are you investing to help them, but you're actually getting a return for that. And so there's so many ways that you can invest your money that will give you more than just a financial return. Like I love to find a combination. Like, could I get a financial and a social return for this? Could I get a financial and an environmental return? And you absolutely can do that. That's super cool. And so pivoting in life, I feel like we pivot all the time, but we don't realize it when it comes to major shifts, like career shifts. And I know you have a chapter about it in the book. So to our listener, if you want to know more about that, make sure you go grab her book. Those career shifts feel big, especially if you've been doing one career for 20 years or you've been a stay-at-home mama for 20 years. And now you're like, oh, okay, my kids are out of the house. What do I do now? I think just getting clear on your values. I love the values exercise. So thank you for sharing that.
The budgeting piece, the way this even connects to money is most of us do have to work for money, whether it's in a career or because we're supporting a spouse who's working or because we're a business owner. And so when I wrote the book, I knew I needed to include a chapter on career and career management because that's a piece that I also thought was missing when I read all those other money books. They talked about what to do with the money, but they didn't talk about how I even got it in the bank account to do something with.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, we got to help people through that piece too and to think about it in a strategic way that we aren't always taught how to do because we just go to work and then we maybe change jobs and we continue.
One of the things I'm doing in my business, so I own a construction business right now, and with that construction business, we are getting ready to partner with an organization called Ready for Life. And Ready for Life is one that supports young adults who have aged out of the foster care system and helps them with their figure out careers, helps them with housing, helps them with anything they need to get their lives started. Because sometimes when they age out of the foster care system, they don't have any more support. I was talking to the director there and he said, we're just trying to get these kids off the hamster wheel of fast food jobs. While a fast food job can serve your need for a short period of time, it's not a long-term career. So he was so excited because we're going to partner and offer an internship with our construction company to help one of the young adults who may be interested in construction and construction management and all sorts of different ways, things and in the trades to really help them kind of move forward and think about career in a different way, not about just getting by day to day. It's about being intentional and pulling yourself up. And I loved how he said it. He said, we don't give handouts, we give hand ups here. And I was like, I love that. That's really poetic. So one other thing I would talk about and that we talk about on this podcast is generational wealth. Darla, I know that you go speak at universities right now. And so with a lot of my listeners being mamas of college age kids or almost to be college age kids, what's your best advice that you can give to us as moms or as parents of these kids as they go off to college? Because I know it's always like, oh my gosh, have I taught them enough? Do they know enough about money and finances and all of that to be successful? So what's your best advice for us?
Is to pay attention to how you talk about money around your kids. What nuggets and messages, because whether you believe it or not, your voice is in their head when making decisions and walking through life. And so have you dropped enough positive money messages into their little brains and left the door open that whenever they have a question, call. And even if I don't know the answer, we can figure it out. And that goes a long way because so many times when I talk to college students in particular, is they're afraid to tell their parents that maybe they made a bad decision or that they're not sure how to do something because they're like, here I am. I'm supposed to be an adult. I'm away at college and I can't be running to my mom every 5 minutes. Actually, your mom wants you to. So go ahead. Call her. She'll welcome the phone call. Reassure your child before you send them off that, hey, I'm here to help you figure things out if you hit a wall. So don't be afraid to call me. And also look in a book because surprisingly, there are books about everything. So between books and YouTube, you can learn anything, but then come back and check to make sure it's not just something somebody made up on the internet.
For sure. So those money messages, what are some specific money messages that we could give to our kids as they go off to college?
You said one earlier, everything is figure outable. Everything is figure outable. So if you feel like you've made a mistake, pause, stop making the mistake, and then we can figure out how to undo the mistake. Do not apply for a credit card that someone introduced you to. If you are interested in a credit card, you go find it. Don't let the person on the diag or on the lawn of the student center get your social security number in exchange for a Frisbee. Let's not do that. Keep a little money. have a little money in your savings account so that if something happens and you need to rescue a friend from a bad situation, or you need to order food because you didn't know the dorms are going to be closed, that you are not just empty-handed and empty bank account. Keep a little money in your account just in case. I remember when I was in college, I always told my mom, hey mom, I don't care what you do with the rest of your life, but I need you to make sure you always have half a tank of gas in your car in case I need you to come save me. And she laughs about it and talks to me about it 20 years later. She's like, I don't know why you told me to always keep a half tank of gas, but I still do to this day. I said, yeah, I never knew if I needed you to come pick me up or something.
That's right. That's right. That's great advice. I love all of those advice. Don't get the credit card on the lawn of the campus. And credit cards are useful, and they're, and my kids, so we've encouraged our kids to get them to use them and practice with them. And, but on a small scale, it's not big stuff. They've learned the practice and the discipline of using the card, but paying it off every month. They're building their credit that way. Well, Darla, thank you so much. This has been such a fantastic time to connect. I love hearing other perspectives. I love hearing your story. I appreciate that so much, you sharing your story and how you are really trying to give back to your community and help individuals and small groups and college kids and universities, like all the things you're doing is so fantastic and so needed in our world today. So thank you for being everybody's big financial sister. I love it. I love it. And so Darla, what is the best way if someone wants to reach out, someone needs a little bit of extra help, how can they connect with you?
The easiest way to find me is going to darlabishop.com. That's my website, has all the contact information. And if you just want to get some input from time to time, follow me. I'm most active on Instagram and LinkedIn at my_financesis. And that sounds like finances, but ends SIS.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Darla. And thank you to our listener for joining us and being here today. We appreciate you, and share this education because we must share the education so we can share the wealth. Thanks so much. Bye for now. Thanks so much for joining me on the Quiet Wealth podcast. If you want more, head on over to camillajeffs.com/podcast to get the show notes and dive into other episodes. While you're there, be sure to grab the free guide to building wealth. And if you know a friend who is struggling with money, please send this episode to them. Let's share the wealth in as many ways as we can. Until next time, much success.